ExponentialCast.
Yes, I'm a byproduct of growing up and doing, I would say most entrepreneurs, you start from zero and you hustle. Therefore, you end up doing every job that's available. I did that. Normally, I would start businesses with a finance person and also someone to actually do the work. But for a long time, I just hustled around the clock. And what I figured out along the way is what my truly unique value contribution was, which is coming up with growth strategies that were not conventional.
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, the podcast that strips away the ordinary and dives into the extraordinary strategies of top entrepreneurs and business owners. I'm your host, Tyler Martin. Get ready to be captivated by today's episode with business expert Chad Jenkins. We'll explore innovative ideas like creating recurring revenue through subscription models, empowering your team for exponential growth, and leveraging the power of less. Plus, Chad shares a quote that's bound to shift your mindset. Let's get started. Hey, Chad, welcome to the Think Business with Tyler podcast show. How are you doing?
Tyler, I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. By the way, I love your view. For those of us that are just listening, he's got a beautiful 3 windows, or it looks like one giant window with, it looks like, I don't know if you're a forest back there or what's going on.
Yeah, well, I'm very, very fortunate. One, the leaves are beginning to come out here in Charlotte, so it's beginning to be springtime. And I'm wrapped on 3 sides with trees, even though I'm in the middle of town. One reason I selected this location is, as you can see, I see nature all the way around my office. So I'm very, very fortunate, as well as anybody on this side of my offices on this side of the wall are able to see it with theirs as well.
That's nice. So you got the executive side of the office.
Very fortunate. Yes, sir.
I love it. You know, the way I'd love to start with this is just learning a little bit about you. What do you do professionally? Share a little bit about your professional background. I'd love to know.
Yeah, sure. As far as what I do today, my main organization that I operate daily is Seed Spark. So seed the vision, spark growth. It means that I partner with organizations all around the world, or entrepreneurs all around the world, to help them grow exponentially through some unconventional thinking. The rest of my time is today, I think I own around 15 to 17 operating companies in about as diverse type of businesses as you could think about. And I also engage with those guys as growth partners. Those guys, is my leadership teams in each one of those companies. So it's all about growth, ultimately, in summary.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
And I also engage with those guys as growth partners. Those guys, is my leadership teams in each one of those companies. So it's all about growth, ultimately, in summary.
Wow. There's so much I want to dig in there. Before I go there, though, I want to learn something about you personally. Do you have anything that no one else knows about you that you're willing to share?
Something that you would never, ever expect, owning pretty sizable cybersecurity firm and software and digital marketing and many, many other different types, is I used to team rope as a kid all around the country, which is a rodeo event where 2 people are on 2 different horses and one person nods their head. They begin to take time. And one has to rope the head of the steer, turn it and drag it, and the other one has to rope the feet of the steer. And then once the big horse, the front horse turns around and faces the back horse, you take time. The fastest, 3.87 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's something a little different than running a bunch of companies. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Did you ever get hurt doing that?
Yeah. So there's one collateral damage that you can experience, and that's the loss of your thumb.
Yeah.
So you think if you have a 700-pound steer running and a horse running, and the horse begins to run in the opposite direction, the rope that connects you to the steer is wrapped around the horn. Watch out for your fingers. Luckily, I never did. I did lose some fingernails one time, way down in McBee, South Carolina, but that was one and only, thank goodness.
As you were explaining it, I was thinking losing an arm. So at least a thumb isn't quite as bad as an arm.
No doubt. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so many directions I want to go here. You talked about, I think you said 15 to 17 businesses you have. Is that 100% ownership or some stake of ownership?
Yeah, so that would be 100% all, but let's see. There's a plumbing company out on the coast of South Carolina. There's an insurance company on the West Coast, and there's a commercial HVAC company that I'm in partnership on. The rest of
Wow.
them are 100%. Yeah.
And how do you do that? So is it, you use the word leadership. I often think when it's a situation like that you have operators that are basically operating your businesses.
Mhm.
Is that correct? Or how do you manage that? I mean, when you're
Mm,
talking that many in different industries too, I mean, there's just so many moving parts, it seems like.
Yes, I'm a byproduct of growing up and doing. I would say most entrepreneurs, you start from zero and you hustle. Therefore, you end up doing every job that's available. I did that. Normally, I would start businesses with a finance person and also someone to actually do the work. But for a long time, I just hustled around the clock. And what I figured out along the way is what my truly unique value contribution was,
Mhm.
which is coming up with growth strategies that were not conventional. The reason I own so many organizations is it took me a little bit of time to figure that out. I think there's 50 plus in my wake. And over time, I began to understand exactly what my unique value contribution was. And I began to put leadership teams, truly leadership teams in each organization, to the extent I only meet with those leadership teams once a month or once every other month per organization. And I engage with them just as a growth partner, which means they're running that thing day to day, they're leading it day to day, and they engage with me to figure out how they can add a zero to their revenue or add a zero to their net profit or begin to remove all the competition in their current space.
Now, do you buy these businesses? I'm assuming you buy them at some point, and that's how you're accumulating.
I mean, there's been quite a few acquisitions, but I would dare say it's the 80 is started from zero and the 20 is acquisition. That's a good
Wow.
percentage. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good. And they're all in different worlds, it
Yeah.
sounds like. When I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, I mean, I don't know how many you list on there, but there's got to be somewhere between 3 to 7 businesses that you've sold out of like 15 experiences that you list, which
Yeah.
is pretty impressive.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's very kind. Over the last 4 to 5 years, really understanding, and I mentioned it earlier, my unique value contribution. Now that's all I want to do because I go home with more energy than I come to work with. And I'm trying to help other entrepreneurs find that around the globe as well. Therefore, when you get in that space, it's not hard to have the numbers like you've seen on the LinkedIn profile shows just a smattering to look real. But the rest of the story is quite accomplishable once you begin to do exactly as what you were made to do.
Okay. Now I got to dig in. One word that you've used is unconventional, and around building a business is you say unconventional, and I hope I'm not putting words into your mouth. What does that mean? Let's drill down in that. How do you build a business in an unconventional way?
Yeah, so I run toward friction. So one concept that I've named now after so many years is remove the film. So oftentimes, and it's really easy to conceptualize this, you get a new iPhone or you bought a new vehicle, but when you peel off the plastic, it looks a lot more vibrant. I see everyone's business model that particular way. So you
Hmm.
have to pull off the film. And what do you do to pull off the film? There's a ton of organizations and there's quite a few entrepreneurs that are turning a blind eye to the friction in their industry or business. And on a daily basis, on the way into work, you'll either get the first email of the day, the first text message, you might still get a telephone call, and you're introduced to the first complaint of the day. Conventionally, that's the way we would interpret that. I chose a long time ago not to interpret it that particular way, but also look for a pattern of those delivered complaints. I would argue they're opportunities, and I classify them as frictions. So as I'm recognizing a pattern in those frictions, they're being identified, i.e., they're trending, and then you would like to leverage the market. So that's particularly the way that I've always been drawn to the friction. And because I had no formal education, nor had I ever been in any one of these industries, I come from a background of just create value. And tomorrow, you have to create more value, rinse and repeat. So I look for friction because that is the building blocks for me to be able to create more value tomorrow for whomever I want this business model to be a hero target to.
Okay. So taking that kind of one layer deeper, when you
Mhm.
look at a typical business owner, entrepreneur, a lot of times There's definitely business owners that do very well, but there's many that struggle, and they struggle whether it be hiring people, maybe cash flow, maybe it's their business model. One, I guess my first question would be, what do you see most where people struggle? And what's, in your opinion, the things that they could do to overcome that?
Yeah, so that's a wonderful question. I would answer it this particular way. The thing to really move the needle in your business, you are already doing. You haven't decided to name it. You haven't decided to package it correctly and to offer it. A lot of times you're giving it away for free. Why? Because at the industry show, they put up a slide and they said, these are the margins you're supposed to get. And they talked about best practices. A long time ago, I continued to dig on this best practices thing. And where I landed on is when I hear best practices, to me, that means average, right? So we've queried the landscape, and all the folks that are doing what you do, the best of the best, do it this particular way. I never really want to do that. So I want to be much, much bigger and have a much larger return. So in peeling back the onion with many entrepreneurs on the planet, inside of their business, they're often delivering the most amount of value in something they're absolutely not charging for. It is also often that whenever they're exposed to that particular opportunity, they began to remove the competition in their industry. Before too long, they're actually producing a lot higher return for whatever revenue is coming in the door, and that revenue is growing as well. But they began to set themselves up for evolution because this thing that they were originally giving away for free, now they decided to name it, offer it, package it, and help their other organization, the one that they own, grow much faster than the current convention in their industry. That sets them up for potentially even evolving and turning that one little key item that was the catalyst for their growth into the next business that they began or that they start. Peel it out of the existing organization.
Okay. So can you give me, if possible, two or three examples of something where, like, traditionally in industry, we might be giving something away that we should be standing back and going, hey, let's name this and it's got value and let's charge for it?
Yeah, sure. I had one specifically. This is
Sure.
a long time ago. I was in the wireless industry, and the commonality friction that I recognized in that industry was everyone's bill was messed up. This is before your unlimited text messaging, unlimited data. Is way before, obviously before then. And just looking at the resources that I had at my fingertips, basically, what are the facts, not specifically what's the label on the outside of the jar from a position or just an awareness. And that is, everyone in my organization had to know these rate plans. They change them every 30 days, and they're changing them so they can get net new subscribers. And then there's a variable. People are using their phones in way different ways every month. So I just played matchmaker. And in doing so, we would do and give that away for free.
Wow.
Not for very long. I decided to package it. It was wireless management, and I charged $5 per phone. So it took about 2 years for that to get up to many multiple millions. And before too long, I had the opportunity to spin it out. And by the way, that was all recurring in a time in which the convention was whenever you sold a new phone, you would get a nice residual commission for 2 or 3 years. And that continued to get lower and lower and lower. And of course, everyone ended up with a phone. So I wanted to control my own residual. And that is a way in which I took the friction in an industry, provided a lot more value by way of who would you want to buy your phone from if you have 20 or 40 or 50, or in some examples, I had clients with a couple thousand phones on their account. Probably want to buy from the guy who's making sure your bill is right. So that's a clear example of identifying the friction, leveraging the existing resources. I didn't do anything different. I was already doing it. We would look at your bill. We would get on the phone with customer service and play matchmaker with the new rate plan and save you some money. All I did was name it, formalize it, and then of course scale it.
Wow. So what would you recommend for the people out in the audience that what should be their process for looking for these types of holes within their business where
Mhm.
there might be opportunity, or there probably is opportunity? Sounds like you're really good at kind of looking at business models and quickly identifying where there might be a leak, so to speak. How can we help maybe individuals to see that?
Yeah, it's another great question. The first and foremost, everything is rooted on value creation.
Uh,
So take maybe one step back from your business
Okay.
and maybe even query those that you're serving and ask them, what is the most valuable thing that my organization does? Not specific to the industry that I'm in, it's the how that you're doing it. How are you and your organization delivering value? They'll tell you. Also, one thing that I would strongly consider, God gave us 4 inputs and 1 output. So 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth. Use them proportionately. So when I spoke earlier about receiving that first email of the day or the first text message, and it's really perceived as or delivered as a complaint. Pay attention to those things. Jot them down. Right? There's too many and easy ways with recording of Fathom and Read and all these AI engines that we can capture those even in our internal meetings and let AI do the work to tell me what were the key items and what were the key complaints on this particular call, and then recognize the trending of them. That's 2 different ways to look at it. Ways that you can create, ways that you are already creating value for the person that you're serving. You a lot of times are giving that away for free. You might consider packaging that up, and I gave you an example earlier. And then the alternative way to begin to move the needle in your business is understand the complaints and the struggles that your team is dealing with. Recognize the trending pattern, because it is highly possible. I mentioned earlier, remove the film, friction, identification, leverage the market. Well, if this friction, i.e., the complaint that I receive, I start recognizing I'm seeing trending here, I begin to ask myself a couple of questions. First question: if I resolve this, does it just help my organization, or does it help organizations in my local market? Like, is this friction, is it something to do locally? Or if I resolve this friction, is it something that helps everybody who's in a business like mine in a certain geography? And then the next question is, if I resolve this friction, does it resolve it for everyone in my industry over the entire planet, or maybe North America or the United States, or everybody who's in business? The old me, when I got yes, 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 and you can see it by the numbers, I would go create a business. The new me is I am able to identify those things, and you sort of alluded to it earlier. I do it for people all over the world in their existing industries so that they can remove the competition and begin to dictate the margin that they receive. But this is something you can do on your own, just following that methodology.
If you're a business owner feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, responsible for everything that happens, and working long hours, Tyler helps his clients develop processes, hire high-performing team members, and better understand their financial metrics and numbers to allow for a more predictable, less hands-on business. To schedule a free, no-pressure consultation, head to thinktyler.com and click the meeting button. Tyler would love to see if he can help you work on your business, not in your business. Schedule a consultation today at thinktyler.com. Think life, think success, think business.
So that they can remove the competition and begin to dictate the margin that they receive. But this is something you can do on your own, just following that methodology.
Yeah. Now, I know you have a great book. It's Just Add Zero.
Yeah.
In that book, do you kind of cover these types of methodologies and how someone can apply these?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And it was the reason that I wrote the book. I wanted to empower others with the tool set that I have been able and been benefited from applying to as many different industries as 50 plus organizations would umbrella. That's quite a few.
Right. Yeah. So the spirit too, and correct me if I'm wrong, is really leveraging the power of less. I think that even might be the subtitle, or it's somewhere in the theme of the book. Talk about that a little bit. Like, what's your thought process and how you leverage things, actually leveraging the power of less? Like, what does that mean? Yeah, let's talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. So the power of unless is, and it happened probably just a second ago on this call or this interview. The second that someone hears just add a zero, the natural thing for their brain to do is tell them all the reasons that you can't do it. So in a hypothetical situation, we're sitting in a leadership team meeting and there's something that we'd really like to change. And the first thing is someone will come up with a solve for that. And then the next thing, somebody will come up with a better solve. No one really asks, are we asking the right question? So leveraging just add a zero, which I've leveraged that methodology for many, many years, add a zero. And of course, yes, most people will say, just add a zero to the end of it. I made $1 million last year and now I want to make 10. Totally fine. And it absolutely works. I would also strongly encourage you to add a zero to the front. So in a situation where you have, let's say, 10 sales folks in your team, 6 are really killing it, 4 are not. You'll come to a meeting and they say, what are we going to do about these 4 people? Everybody starts coming up with an individual solve for what? For the 4 people. Just add a zero to the front. So ask the question, hypothetically, of course, how are we going to hit our numbers or exceed our numbers this year if we reduce down to one team member? And then do exactly what I just did. Be quiet. Have a whiteboard handy. On the left side, encourage them to tell you all the reasons that can never, ever be true. We can't do it because of this reason. There's no way we can do it. What are we going to do with these people? Write them all down. And then right after that, draw one line down the center of your whiteboard. Then write one word, unless, after each one of those individual entries. And then this is the hard part. Be quiet again. And then watch all those invested dollars for the leadership team that you employ. Watch the real gray matter go to work in their brains. They'll start coming up with each and every way that for the items that are on the left side of the whiteboard, those could be true. And you could actually make this the outcome that you seek if you would consider doing what's on the right side. Now, I'm not saying go in and let 9 people go, or I like to say reallocate resources, because I've often tried to find, and often there is another way that that particular person's unique value contribution could be utilized somewhere else in the organization. But I'm not projecting that. What I'm absolutely saying is strongly consider just adding a 0, and then leverage the power of unless. Try to be quiet and let your team really show up. Let them have a real contribution in the outcome or the decisions that are made. That particular example I said is hypothetical, was not so much. I did it in maybe 2014 or 2015. I'd like to report with the things that came out of that particular meeting. We doubled the revenue goal for that year, growth year over year. We maintained all of that staff and just reallocated them. The high performers, they needed a lot of assistance, but they didn't need an administration assistance. They need somebody who'd been in the trenches as before. So we strongly were not going to get rid of 4 folks and then go hire 4 more, make them sales admins, and then send them on ride-alongs. You already had 4. Remember what I said earlier? Sometimes, please don't get balled up with what's the label on the outside of the jar. Look at that particular resource, whether it be a person, a place, or a thing. Dig a little deeper and understand its authentic expression. A lot of times you'll find ways to combine that with other things that you already have to create a lot more value. This is just an indication of that.
Okay. So you have 17 companies, whatever the number is, a lot of companies. It's a little easier. I would argue it's a little easier for you to kind of let go in terms of, when you're talking about one of your companies, you really do need the leadership team or the operator, whoever it is, kind of to execute and think outside of the box and really help you with the solutions, because you're only one person and there's only probably so much you can spread out yourself.
That's true.
Where I'm going with this is, typical listener here has one business. It's, paying all the bills for their family, paying all the bills for their employees. It's a little harder to say, trust your employees in terms of let them solve the problem. And maybe the business owner doesn't have, or the entrepreneur doesn't have that experience of seeing that whole evolution of how it plays out. As you hear me say this, what are you thinking, and what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. And we've sort of already spoken about it. An example, I own one business. I have a couple folks on leadership, or maybe I don't have a leadership team today, but you got some trusted confidants in your organization, right?
Sure.
So the next time you have a meeting, consider just adding a 0, or even better, maybe this Saturday or tomorrow morning when you get up extremely early. That is my preferred time, is very, very early in the morning. I get my best thinking done then. If that is you, tomorrow morning, add a 0 where you want to, and then really unpack what that would enable you to have as net profit. No matter where you add this to, what real impact, if you were able to accomplish this, what real impact would it have to your business? And if you're able to ferret that out all the way to the net profit, that's going to be a way different number. How much of that number are you willing to share with someone who can help get you there? If you want to graduate and evolve to what you've heard on this particular call, I was unable to do it until I did exactly what I just suggested that you might consider doing. Add the 0, understand the outcome that can be created, and then, of course, net profit, top line revenue, and then figure out what amount you're willing to share of that. And it might surprise you how much actual budget you have to engage folks who can absolutely get you there, because you're beginning to leverage the power of future money. And folks will say, well, I just don't have the budget for that. And that's what, yeah, I get it. I know. Please believe me, I've been there. I'm still there. There's still big, lofty goals I have for all these organizations, and I have to think differently. But if I know this strategy is going to create another $1 million a year of net profit in any one of my organizations, I'm okay giving up, let's say, $500,000 of that. I'd be delighted to do it because this $1 million isn't going to come one time. It's going to come year after year after year after year. Sure. Okay, so now I'm working with a $500,000 budget. And if I go to someone who is extremely confident in their ability to create the outcome, and they also have the proper mindset, as long as I'm able to track it, and we can say in the first 3 months, or maybe even the first month, if you'll help me create this outcome in the first month, we probably could sell 10 or sell 20 or create X amount of leads. And that's going to mean $100,000 worth of revenue and $20,000 worth of profit. I'll split it with you until we get you paid to whatever you normally charge. And then I'll give you 20% of everything that happens in the first year. Remember, I was using that $500,000 of budget. The only thing I wanted to do is make sure I could track it properly and share with whoever that person is that can help me create that outcome. And it's absolutely a strategy that's not typically considered in small to medium-sized businesses. But that's an exponential growth strategy for sure.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
It all starts with adding at zero and really challenging the visionary side of yourself. If you truly, and I assume everyone who's listening to the podcast is the visionary. It is our responsibility to see the future and to see the total outcome that could be. And then take that picture that you painted in your mind and go make it a reality. Just consider future money with doing it.
And I think sometimes you just brought up a great point. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs mature, they have a hard time splitting the operator and the visionary from themselves. In other words, hey, I'm now the visionary. I need to really rely on the operator. Any words of wisdom around how to do that or how to be more conscious and really thinking of yourself as a visionary?
Yeah, if I could instill any confidence, I would say do it yesterday, do it yesterday, do it yesterday. There's a concept by Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, which I'm sure most people know, is simplifier multiplier. Probably everyone that's listening just thought, I am a simplifier. Oh, wait, I am a multiplier. And the answer is yes, you are. But there's one that you're predominant. Whichever one you're predominant in, embrace it and find the opposite side of the coin. If you really want to unleash the growth potential in your organization, find it as fast as you can. Remember the first thing I said? Yes, do it yesterday. I didn't. I promise I didn't for years in many organizations. And I can run pretty fast and I create value consistently. So many organizations. I remember maybe in 2008 or 2009, I was somewhere around 9 to 12 organizations. I ended up closing some of them, sold a couple, and whittled down to 2 because I didn't do exactly what you just clearly outlined. I did not leverage an operator and get out of the way of the organization. Even though I had in some organizations, when I began to build them and create them again and really expand, I had some of the talent already on the team, but I was in the way. So I'd strongly challenge yourself, give somebody an opportunity, try your best to get out of the way. You will thank yourself for it big time. There'll be some stumbles along the way, of course. We've all had them, but my goodness, being on the other side of it and having all those folks implemented in all these organizations that has empowered themselves and also the impact to their families, I'm a little ashamed that I didn't do it much, much earlier. What a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I want to shift gears a little bit. So you've been in a lot of industries and you are in a lot of industries. Are there any industries you've been part of where you're like, oh man, I'll never get involved in that again? There isn't either good margin in it, people are hard, whatever. Anything stand out of like just not going there again?
Yeah, for me, it's anything project based.
Okay. Is it because the risk is too high or what's the reason?
And it's funny, I say that at the same time, I own a pretty sizable construction company, which is absolutely project-based. I do like them because, of course, the cash flow they create and the opportunity. Lower margins, not as sexy. But even in those project-based organizations, this is also something I help many of them around the world with. Earlier today, conversation, painting contractor, residential, project, start in, go get more revenue, start in, go get more revenue. And he's been told by somebody in M&A, there's really hard to sell those types of service companies. Not 100% true, but also, if you think about it, even in paint contractor for residential, this happened in HVAC a long time ago, right? I'm not going to recreate the wheel, but I am going to be aware a service program maybe a care program that you would apply. I'm going to come in twice a year. I'm going to touch up paint, and it's going to be $500 to $1,000, $80 a month. Something pretty inexpensive. And we all know who the decision maker is there, correct? It's the Mrs. of the house. We'll call it AKA the boss, right? So, but if you were to take just that concept and apply it to a very traditional, and I will argue a very conventional business model, but now you're adding value. Why? Because it means something to that homeowner, especially the boss, that we don't have nicked up walls. We all have children running out, dragging their book bags to and fro, running to sports, and they just bump up the wall, or you have a pets. I'm sure there's a couple pets here. So looking at those project-based companies and trying to figure out, it's like, hey, how can I focus on those that we create value for, understand what their frictions are? How can we get in front of that? And in this example, create a care program. Okay, let's see. If you're the only one that created a care program, you literally have just removed all the competition. And by the way, you could probably do 20% the revenue of what you're currently doing in that project-based revenue model, and you've doubled the value of your organization. So back to the answer to your question, project-based organizations, in one way, I won't do that again. In another way, absolutely, I'll acquire them. I probably won't start them, but I'll acquire them. And I'll absolutely go in partnership for future opportunity with project-based organizations, facilitating a way that they can at least begin to create some recurring revenue in their model.
Okay. So you just said the magic word there. I wanted to make sure I was tracking with you. I think I was. So basically, project-based, the reason you don't like them is because it's one-off business is what I'm extrapolating. And then you tie in something that has a reoccurring element, subscription, if you will, whatever you want to call it, to create that. So you're not having to reinvent the wheel in terms of revenue every single time with each project. Am I kind of summarizing it okay?
You're summarizing it very well.
Okay, cool.
Affords you the ability to make some really solid decisions and to greatly increase your enterprise value. One day we won't own these businesses.
Yeah, I love that.
Let's get prepared today.
And to your point, like you acquire a project-based business that is just strictly thinking project-based, you immediately infuse a lot of value if you build in some type of residual type income opportunity that, once again, in the word, I'm talking a little bit more financy geeky, but you're really talking value and how can you improve the experience of your customer, which is really what this is all about.
Yes, build relationship, increase value to who you serve, and increase value for what you're charged to do. I mean, I love revenue and I love making a bunch of money in one calendar year. I'd much rather make it for a long term and be preparing for my exit in the future, just being intentional about it.
So, man, I could talk to you all day. So I'm going to switch gears here.
Sure.
We've definitely covered some topics. I love to, before we wrap up, I always love to kind of try to take away 3 action items from our conversation today. And I think I probably have 10 that I've actually jotted down, but we're just going to talk about 3. 3 that really stood out to me is really think about applying best practices, because there's a high probability you're just applying average. You're just being average in doing so. So that was one that really stuck out to me. I never really thought about, if everybody's doing best practices, you just become average. So it's just, that's pretty a lot of wisdom there. I would say really think about your best thinking time today. And then that's when you should be doing it. I make time for it. I'm
Yes.
like you. I'm really early in the morning. I'm like as sharp as a tack. You
Mhm.
talk to me later in the evening. I'm not one of these people that like to work till midnight or 3 o'clock in the morning. I like to do my heavy lifting as early as possible. That's where I think I'm sharp. So that really resonated with me. And then I guess the other one, like I said, I have multiple ones, would be a visionary yesterday as a business owner or an entrepreneur. Like don't let that pass. It's too valuable to what you can offer to your company, is being in that visionary role as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
So those were the 3. Anything you want to add, edit, amend, anything on your end?
I think all of those are. There's one quote that I would like to share that's been very impactful for me. And this started when I was 8 years old. I figured out roughly what my dad was making. I grew up on a farm. I was digging a post hole manually, not with a tractor and auger. And I thought, man, no one's ever going to pay me that amount of money. I got to figure this out. And I felt helpless. And that is not true. Immediately, I began to look at things differently. So what you've heard about today is it started when I was 8, all the way back. And I began to look at the resources I had at my immediate fingertips. So later into my life and business journey, growth journey, I ran across a quote from Thomas Widener, which was a squire for Theodore Roosevelt. And it goes, do what you can with what you have where you are. That's exactly what I started doing. I started creating businesses way, way back when. And I didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly what I started doing. Do what you can with what you have where you are. And many examples today I've given you, I had the resources in these organizations. The entrepreneurs I help around the world, they already have more resources than they're leveraging to create value. So it's not that you have to have a big war chest of cash and investment. You likely already have what you need to really begin to move the needle.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
You likely already have what you need to really begin to move the needle.
Yeah, that's powerful. I like that. Okay, so your book is Just Add a Zero.
Yes, sir.
Guys, I highly recommend check it out. It's on Amazon or any other bookstore you happen to like. Just Add a Zero. Your website is seedspark.com, seedspark.com. Seed is like the SEED, spark.com. And if people wanted to reach out to you anywhere else you'd want them to go?
LinkedIn's always very, very easy. And the seedspark.com, of course, is a great way as well. So either one is awesome.
Cool. Can't thank you enough for being on the show. You tons of wisdom. I feel like it's funny. I always go over, I have a handful of questions. We didn't even scratch the surface because there was so much stuff you shared. I could have probably even drilled more. So thanks again. Hopefully maybe in the future you'll come back.
Yeah, I loved it. I really enjoyed it, Tyler. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Think Business with Tyler. But we have plenty more resources to help you in your pursuit of business excellence on our website at thinktyler.com. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode of the show, feel free to reach out to us on social media at think_Tyler. We look forward to helping you think life, think success, and think business.
Electricast.